Today, once again, we're going to that strange mansion party, and we're going to take a close look at the character of Red Cloak. Hey, hello, and welcome to my channel. As you can see from the title today, we're talking about Eyes Wide Shut, and in particular, we're going to look at the character of Red Cloak. And yes, we're actually going to name him, or at least, in my opinion, who I think it is. My theory may be surprising to some, but after you hear me out, I think you may end up agreeing with me on the actual identity of Red Cloak. But first, I want to make it clear that I believe Red Cloak is a character who is based off of several very real people, as well as some fictional characters too. Today, we're going to look at one of those real people. So, Red Cloak is a composite character, in my opinion. Also, I need to state, I definitely don't mean any offense here. It's just my opinion that Red Cloak is based off of the following person. And that person is Liccio Gelli. I can hear some of you saying, who? Well, first, let's start with a few basic facts. Liccio Gelli was born in Italy in the early 1900s and died at the age of 96 about 10 years ago. But why does this guy have anything to do with Red Cloak? Well, the first reason is Gelli was the leader of a group called Propaganda Due, or P2, and he actually held the title of Venerable Master because this group had once been part of Italy's main Masonic lodge organization. But they had their charter withdrawn in 1976, and at that point, they went rogue, operating in the shadows. Now, there are a number of similarities between Red Cloak and Mr. Gelli. Seen here wearing the robes of a Masonic group leader, you can see the symbol of the Freemasonic square and compass on the sash that symbolize the grand architect of the universe. He's also holding some type of small rod, though it's hard to see. Of course, Red Cloak has a ritual outfit on, and he has a staff that he uses too. And Red Cloak also has Freemasonic symbols near him. Look here, at the throne Red Cloak sits on. There's a two-headed eagle on it if you look closely, with a crown above. This is specifically a symbol of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. So both of these men are wearing ritual outfits and leading groups with some Masonic symbolism, except in my opinion, both of these groups went rogue and are operating as outlaw orders. How do we know that? Because Gelli's group, Propaganda Due, used to be a mainline Freemasonry group in Italy, but they were excommunicated in 1976 and became a much more shadowy group. But yet, prominent people were members. Silvio Berlusconi was apparently a member before he became the Prime Minister of Italy in the 1990s. Here's a pic of Gelli, he's in the center, and on the right is Giulio Andreotti, who was also a Prime Minister of Italy. So Liccio Gelli knows many prominent people. And Red Cloak? I mean, just look at the grand mansion he performs his ritual at. It's obvious that Red Cloak knows and has access to very wealthy and prominent people. So this is something the two men have in common. Why do I say Gelli's group Propaganda Due went rogue? Well, P2 was implicated in many scandals and mysteries, but the most notorious, perhaps, was the Vatican bank scandal of 1982, which involved a bank owned in part by the Vatican that was suddenly unable to account for $1.4 billion, and the bank collapsed. Now, this scandal is so complex, it would take an hour just to describe, but suffice to say, Gelli was tried and convicted and sentenced for fraud to 12 years in prison, but he never spent a day behind bars in Italy. And the chairman of that bank that collapsed, who was known as God's banker, his name was Roberto Calvi, who was apparently a member of Gelli's group Propaganda Due. This certainly sounds like a shadowy rogue group. A strange story about that banker, Roberto Calvi, God's banker, is that shortly after the Vatican bank scandal broke, he was found dead in London, hanging under Blackfriars Bridge with 5 bricks in his pockets. Now, I am not saying that Gelli or Propaganda Due had anything to do with that, but the symbolism is odd and reminds me of the Hanged Man tarot card, which I've mentioned before in regards to Red Cloak, since his ritual has 11 robed women in it, with him at the center as number 12. And the Hanged Man is the 12th card of the tarot. Another strange detail with Calvi's death at Blackfriars Bridge is that Propaganda Due referred to themselves as Frati Neri, which means Black Friars. Now, you might be asking, well, how do we know that Kubrick was aware of Gelli or Propaganda Due, that he would even use their leader as one of the people he modeled Red Cloak after? And I would say this: Stanley Kubrick was a brilliant man, a genius, in fact. And since the Vatican bank story and all of the controversy surrounding it was such a huge story at the time, I think it is almost certain that Kubrick would have been aware of this scandal and the people surrounding it. Now, we have several similarities between these two men. Liccio Gelli is the leader of a quasi-Masonic group in Italy called Propaganda Due, or P2. And Red Cloak is, of course, the leader of the Mansion cult, and he also has Masonic symbolism around him, such as the 2-headed eagle with a crown that is on his throne, which is a Scottish Rite Freemasonry symbol. And here, Gelli is pictured with a prime minister of Italy, and other prominent people like bank chairman Roberto Calvi were apparently members of P2. Of course, one look at the mansion and you know that Red Cloak knows prominent people and has access to the most exclusive places, though I also think the mansion was chosen for occult significance. But that's the subject of another video. I also believe both Gelli and Red Cloak are leaders of shadowy groups that, in my opinion, were once mainline Masonic groups, but they went rogue at some point and became distinctly outlaw. How do I know this? Well, the main Freemason groups describe themselves as charitable organizations that believe in the brotherhood of man and the Almighty God. Now, does that really sound like Red Cloak or his cult? Red Cloak never mentions God, and he behaves more like a high-level magician than a man of God. And Liccio Gelli and his group were linked to numerous scandals, many involving money and sordid political events too. They don't really sound like a charitable group, but maybe the best proof of their rogue status is this. When asked what he wanted to be in life, Liccio Gelli answered, "I always wanted to be a puppet master." And perhaps this could also describe Red Cloak. Well, that's my video about the possible real identity of Red Cloak from Eyes Wide Shut. Of course, I think Red Cloak is a composite character who is based off of several different people, some real and some fictional. And yes, I'm going to do videos on some of those other characters too. Now, next week is Halloween, and I'll be visiting my family so I can carve some pumpkins. But the week after that, I'll be back with a new video. And thank you to my great comments section who always have something interesting to say. Also, you can hit that subscribe button. It would help my channel. But either way, my name is Shim. Thank you for spending time with me, and have a great day.
No one can change her fate now. When a promise has been made here, there is no turning back.